Hello, everyone. Come on in to Act Now Live. Hello, I'm Dr. Natalie Phillips.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reggie Corona.
All right, so we are here, and I'm going to share it into a few groups of ours, and I'm going to have Reg talk real quick about our YouTube channel and maybe how you can find us as well. So let's start with the YouTube channel.
Yep, we are on YouTube. Make sure that you go over to YouTube, find us at Act Now Guide, and then subscribe. And don't forget to hit the little bell for notifications so that when we drop new content. Right now, it's just our show. We go or we put our show out every week, but we will be adding new content. So make sure that you subscribe and hit notifications so that you're aware. And you can go out and find us on Facebook. As you know, you're already here at Act Now Guide. And look for us on all platforms. You can look for us with Act Now, and you'll find us. You'll know that you found us by our very distinguishing brand colors. I love our brand colors.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Also, man, we were just talking a little bit about Clubhouse, and I know that we don't want to spend too much on it, but we were just thinking, if you guys want to join us on Clubhouse, we might actually open up a room and have a conversation. So we're thinking all of our friends are there right now, but all of you creatives that don't have Clubhouse too, we want to be able to serve you as well. So we have our good friend, Mary Campos. Good to see you here.
Mary, I saw Mary come up on, I got a notification. Actually, Mary, I'm going to let you into Clubhouse. And normally there's a welcome. I don't know that I have time to do the welcome this afternoon, but there's a few things that you need to be aware of. Like if you ever get called up to stage, make sure you have your mic on until you speak, and you don't speak when other people are speaking. There's a bunch of other things. Make sure you have a bio that attracts people, that kind of thing. But I'm going to let you in right now. Okay, sorry,
awesome.
Natalie.
Okay, cool, Mary. So stay tuned because we might pop up there a little bit later on this afternoon. Reg and I had just talked about it, jumping on. I'm trying to make sure that I can get this show sent out. But you guys, it's good to see you. I see a few people joining in, so I'm so glad that you guys are here. And we're going to continue our conversation about mindset and really kind of dive in a little bit deeper into an interesting topic, which I think, because it's a little more cerebral, because we're going to talk about the brain. I love this part. I actually jumped in on a group today, talking a little bit more about this as well, and just trying to understand how the brain works, especially as an entrepreneur, and then also just, making decisions and kind of, the biggest thing I think is when it relates to fear, right? And that's what we're talking about. That's what we want to talk about today, because it is something that, again, as an entrepreneur, you're going to get stuck. And when you get stuck, it's not a good thing. Like, we want you to take action. That's why we're here. And so that's what we want to talk about. We have a few more people coming on. Thank you for saying hi. It's so good to see you. So Susan, it's good to see you from Wisconsin today. I didn't know you were in Wisconsin. Okay. And then we also have Leah Pike Smith.
Hi, Leah. Leah's one of my clients. Hi, Leah.
Yes, so let us know that you're here so that we know. So, all right, other things that we wanted to kind of talk about too. Don't forget that, stay tuned, because we're going to be announcing some different things, networking events, groups to stay connected to and have accountability. But we are constantly working on some different things for you guys. And so we want to make sure that you stay tuned for some of our things that are coming up in the beginning of the year. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about this concept of the brain. I know that there's 3 different areas of the brain. I have a graphic I'm going to add up real quick, which is the triune brain. And this is something that we talk a little bit about in the book. We don't dive in super, in depth with this in the book, but this triune brain, this concept, it's not really a concept because it's the truth. But in the 1960s, this American neuroscientist, Paul MacLean, named it this triune brain, and I wanted to just put this up because it shows some of the different areas, which, honestly, I'm going to try to put this up over that, is the reptilian brain, the area, the limbic system, or the area with emotions, and then also the logical part of your brain. So, I know that there's lots of things to discuss here, but Reg, what are your thoughts about these areas of the brain?
This is a really interesting topic. It can be a little dry because it is very scientific, and I'm always looking for fun ways to talk about it. But I love this concept or this the science around this because it helps you to understand a little bit better what's happening
Mhm.
in your body when you are walking through some of these behaviors, and it also helps you to understand then how to counteract some of
Mhm.
what you're experiencing. I love talking about the reptilian brain. It's just, it gets really crazy. But yeah, I think it's fun.
Yeah. So, and I talk a little bit about the areas of the brain too when I am working with my patients in audiology, because I actually teach them and I retrain their brain to ignore what we call as tinnitus or sounds in the brain, and also sound
Oh.
sensitivity. And so I work with these areas of the brain to get them to actually lower their level of being able to detect things and then spend a higher level of brain activity monitoring it so that it continues to get worse. So I actually help them desensitize or habituate to different things. So it's very, very similar in when you're stepping out. I think first of all, when you have an idea, we work with a lot of creatives, with a lot of entrepreneurs that are afraid to step out with their ideas because of this fear. And, although I think that this brain that we talk about, these three areas, are constantly at war with each other, right?
Mhm.
The reptilian part is the part where we react to fear. The emotion
Mhm.
part is maybe the part that, you think about, okay, maybe, I'm not too sure I'm going to be able to do this, or, that I don't really want to step out because I'm not ready, and then, well, that's more the logic part where I don't have a list of things that I can do
Mhm.
or offer, or I don't have resources. And so anything as part of this brain can stop you from moving forward. And that's huge, because we truly believe that if we can get past some of these things and understand some of these things, that we're going to continue to take action, because it's not going to matter. It's not going to stop us in our tracks as much as it has in the past. And so, hello,
Mhm.
Jama, good to see you again as well. So
Hi,
we're
Jane.
connecting with so many people on Clubhouse, and then now they're kind of connecting to us here in Facebook. So it's so good to see so many of you. All right. So, but we're going to spend a little bit more time on the reptilian brain, because I think that seems to be more of the one that stops people in their tracks, right? It's the fear part.
Well, so the reptilian brain is the part that is just primitive. It's the part that says,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. I'm going to run. I'm not going to deal with this. I can't take it. I'm like literally that fight or flight idea comes into play with the reptilian brain. If you tell yourself that you're going to do something that you don't feel confident in, or you're unsure about, immediately the reptilian brain steps in and starts to have
Mhm.
influence, and it says, okay, I've got to compensate for what she or he is talking about, right? So, and then you start to feel physical reactions. That's the physical reactions are actually what the reptilian brain causes. So, the heart starts to beat faster. You
Mhm.
get sweaty palms. I have this thing where I get red patches. I start to turn red, and it can
Mhm.
happen. It's fear. It's excitement, and it can be anger, all of those things. So when you see if I turn red, you're trying to figure out, well, which one is she? It's hard to tell because I can't even figure it out. But we start to have these physical reactions. That's the reptilian brain taking over and saying, okay, I've got to compensate because she's really thinking about doing something that is kind of crazy. It's not what I want to do, and I've got to protect her. So all of these things come into play as mechanisms to protect, and a lot of them are physical.
Yeah. And I'm going to put this up as well, because the reason why it is, let me take that banner down so that you can see that. But the reason why it's called the reptilian brain is because it looks like a little snake, and I don't know if you guys knew that as well. So I wanted to put this, I found this picture up just to let you know where that term, the reptilian brain, comes from. And then also, okay, so this is going to be a kind of one of my indulgences that I'm going to share with you. But I actually watch Cobra Kai. So I know that's funny. So if you guys were like back in the 1980s when Karate Kid came out, well, now they have, like, this is 30 years later, and now they have this new series like on Netflix that you can watch, and it's called Cobra Kai, and it shows you what happened after all of that, right? But it made me, in researching and really studying this reptilian part of the brain, it really made me think about that, and if you are a Karate Kid fans, or if you remember that, right, they talked, Cobra Kai is the cobra, obviously, is the one that is like the strongest, and that it's never going to give up. And so some of the things that I found that I was just going to kind of share about being a reptile too, is that it shows no mercy, right? And that's part of what the Cobra Kai thing is that it shows no mercy. You can either dominate or you can be dominated. There are external triggers, as well. But I think the thing about the no mercy, and either you choose to be dominated or dominate, that's the thing that you have to make that quick decision, as you're going through different things. Are you going to give up, like Reg had said? Are you going to flee? Are you going to fight? Are you going to freeze? It's this primitive part of the brain that allows, or it doesn't really allow you, but that's the part that's making that decision of, I'm not going to take action. I'm just going to slither back down in my hole, right? Or I'm going to freeze and, like, I don't know what to do next. And so I think I'll just kind of do what's comfortable, right? And those are some of the things that we want to make sure that, number one, it's good to identify, because once you can identify what your reaction is, it's going to be a lot easier than to take action and to get you past that.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. So I'll be in full transparency. So I was on Clubhouse today, earlier this morning, and I there was a room that I was in, and I wanted to weigh in on the conversation. And you had all of these influencers at the stage. I ended up not getting in because I had to leave. I put my hand up for a bit, but there were probably about 800 people in the room, and I had to leave out shortly after I put my hand up. But the moment that I made the decision, so my neocortex brain, my logic brain said, I have something to say, and I think it's valuable, and I want to raise my hand so that I can be brought up on stage to say something. Immediately, the limbic system brought in emotions of fear, like, oh my gosh, do you know that you're asking to be on stage with some major players? Then my my reptilian brain kicked in, and my heart started beating really fast. I felt my hands feel, and I was like, this is nuts. What is going on? So my logic brain kicked in again and said, okay, we've got to calm the reptilian brain down. So let's start breathing slower. Let's take a moment and start taking deep breaths. Like, I've learned this stuff enough where now I know how they influence one another. So I've started learning how to take control back. And I think this is really important to understand, especially when you're talking about fear, especially when you're talking about speaking, even if it's just audio. People are still afraid to speak. They're afraid of being judged and assessed, and what are people going to think about me and what I say, right? So in those moments, you have to take control again. And the logical brain has to say, wait a minute, we're not in fight or flight mode. We've got to calm down. And when you start to force yourself then to take deep breaths, then you calm the reptilian brain down. Then you're able to actually go up. Had I gone up on stage, I would have been able to go up and speak and have confidence and be okay, knowing that there's no need for me to be in this mode of, I'm nervous, or I'm
Mhm.
scared, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I love that that example as well, because it's just like here, you guys show up and you listen to us and you engage and you say hello. But we also want you to, like what Reg was going through, share examples of what you've gone through, because
Yeah.
how she calmed herself down was specific to what she learned about herself. That's that whole self-awareness part. And then what would help her be able to calm down and get into a different area per se, of her brain, to let that take over that reptilian, that primitive, like, oh my gosh, I'm not too sure, or which leads to the imposter syndrome as well, right? And I know almost everybody out there has that imposter syndrome that we have to constantly battle with. And so being aware of the type of way that you react, and knowing some different ways that you can either, depending on the way you react, calm yourself down. Sometimes it's breathing techniques. Sometimes it is, I was in a room, and while I was waiting, I literally wrote down what I wanted to say, because I didn't want to forget. And then when you get up on stage and you're asked to talk, I didn't want to forget anything that I wanted to say, right? So maybe for other people, it's maybe writing something down while they're waiting, and thinking about it. Or yeah, what other techniques do you have, Reg?
I was just going to say preparation, and you and
Mm,
I talk about this a lot because I tend to do things impromptu a lot. I'm very much off the cuff. It's just a natural way that I deal with things. But even in that, I do prepare in that I go over notes or content. I understand the topics. I heard someone, it seems like we're talking about Clubhouse a lot, but I heard someone today in Clubhouse talk about the best way to be confident is to understand or to know what you're talking about. So,
mm,
besides knowing yourself, to know the topic that you're talking about. So when you want to elevate yourself like to a stage to speak, or when you want to raise your hand and be at the table, make sure that when you're speaking about something that you're going to add value to, and that you understand. And when you are speaking in, I call this your genius zone, right? When you're operating in your genius zone, you're confident, and confidence takes over because that's something that you know. And I wanted to throw in there too, talking about the reptilian brain. When we think about the reptilian brain, because it is primitive, also think about that's the part that it's not logical.
mhm,
So when you let the reptile lead, what you're going to lead with is something that doesn't come out very articulated or eloquent,
mhm,
or because you're letting that side of you lead. So you have to take a step back and say, okay, I want to lead with the part that is logical. I also think leading with emotions, when they're controlled emotions,
mhm.
is good too, because it shows your authenticity and it shows who you are, and people can connect with you
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jama says she likes that, writing things down. Yeah, that just helped me out. And it's not only about what I wanted to say when I got to that point to share, but in the meantime, I wanted to address a certain person that was up there, or I wanted to talk to that certain person. And so that reminded me about the thoughts that I put together, even though I was still listening. So for me, I know that I'm very much of a writer. I write everything down, but I like to organize my thoughts by looking at it when I write things down, as well as, again, the best way that I can do things is I just don't like to forget things. Now, for some people, that is somewhat limiting, because then when you write things down, you feel like you have to read it exactly like you wrote it down. So maybe if that's not the case, maybe try bullet points or something like
Mhm,
that. Or I know Reg has talked about mind mapping as well, and
mhm.
that's a little bit different process. But at the same time, visual things for me, having things visually help me to learn. And so that's one of those things that it calms down my reptilian brain, and I can move through any emotions that I'm feeling at the time while I'm listening to what I want to respond to. And then it takes me to the logical part of the brain, where once then I'm calm, I can talk logically about and confidently. That's the biggest thing, is when you can organize your thoughts, you can then become a little more confident when it is your time to have that place at the table, at that seat, the seat at the table, when you have that
Absolutely.
choice. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So we definitely, again, we wanted to talk a little bit more about this, dive a little bit more into it. I know it was kind of a little heavier, like Reg said, more cerebral, and but we still think it's important because we didn't dive into it really well into the book, but we wanted to talk about it a little bit more. As we're going through this chapter of mindset within our book, as we said, we're going to go through every chapter of the book for every month. So this is going to take us a year. So we want you to definitely come back and join us every week, every month, because we're going through every single chapter. If you haven't grabbed the book, then follow along. If you have, this is going to be, if you do have the book, this is going to be a little bit more. We're going to go a little bit deeper than what is, in the book as well. But I think that heading towards the topic of mindset, next week, we're going to be covering, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And I love that topic as well. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about that. I think that as entrepreneurs and creatives, it's one of those things where it's just like, getting control of this brain, knowing who you are, being okay with it, and then also taking that a little bit further and really moving into this growth mindset to get to where you need to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Mindset is huge, huge, huge. And, half of the battle is getting beyond the thoughts that we have and the limitations that we set on ourselves. Once we break through those, then, the how, I always say the how is the easy part. When I'm working with people, let's talk about the what, the who, and let's get you in the right mindset. So mindset is huge, and I'm loving the fact that we are talking about mindset this month.
Yeah. Jema said this, but she also said, never mind, I got it. But she said, how can I get notifications for this show? I would love to follow. It's a great question, Jema. So I know that you found it, but we're going to put this in the show as well so that people can find us. So we definitely, if you're following us on Facebook, we go live every Sunday, 3:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4:00 p.m. at Mountain Standard Time. If you're in Facebook itself, you are able to actually go in and hit notifications and see first. Or if you miss it, we put everything up on our YouTube channel as well. So you can catch it on YouTube or Instagram as an IGTV video as well. And we drop it into our private Act Now Face group. So those are some of the areas that you can find us doing our show. But yeah, that's a great question.
You can also go and sign up on our website to get email notifications. And the very first thing that we send out is it's a 5-day e-course, but it's got a couple of bonuses as well. And I know that we send out reminders. I think we send out reminders of the show, and there's a few other things that we send out. So that's another way to connect with us.
Yeah, awesome. All right. So we will see you guys next week to talk about the fixed mindset, growth mindset. Bring questions that you have, or if you have ways that you've moved from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, we'd love to hear about that as well, on the show. So come back and join us next week at 3:00 p.m. Pacific time and 4:00 p.m. Mountain time on our next episode of Act Now Live. All right. We'll see you later.
And look for us on Clubhouse.